And joining us on the line right now, KT McFarland, national security analyst for Fox News, good friend of this program. Good morning to you, KT.
Good morning.
I'll start out with what's going on with the Iran deal. It looks like, I mean, we've been saying this for a while, but I mean, it's very, very close. As far as I can tell, if the president gets one more Democratic member of the Senate to sign on, it's pretty much a done deal. The Iran nuclear deal will go through. Is that your assessment as well? And if so, what should we, as average Americans, be focused on?
Okay, if it goes through, which I think it probably, the veto, he'll veto it, it'll override the veto. If the Iran deal goes through, I think what we ought to do is get a deck of cards. Remember in the Iraq War when there was that deck of cards of the 52 top Saddam Hussein guys?
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to get a deck of cards, and on every one of them, instead of the face of the card, should be the people who voted to uphold the Iran deal. And then when Iran gets nuclear weapons, when there's a nuclear arms race in the Middle East, when one of the countries that gets nuclear weapons in the Middle East is overthrown by ISIS, then I think we start going after the guys on the deck of cards. They have to be held accountable.
Politically. You mean politically,
politically,
right?
Yeah. No, I don't mean in the other way. Right, no, politically held accountable.
Just needed to get that clarified.
Oh, boy.
Well, listen, I mean, yesterday we spoke with Larry Kudlow, of course, from CNBC, and he said very clearly it seems like there's two senators left. Joe Manchin, moderate Democrat in West Virginia, who often defies the president, and Richard Blumenthal out of Connecticut, who is up for re-election. And Larry Kudlow said, if Dick Blumenthal votes for the Iran deal, I will challenge him in the race, and he will be a well-funded and formidable candidate. So they're going to be targeted for their re-election bids.
And they should be, because what the president has, this whole thing has been presented to the American people as an alternative. This deal, which they say is peace or war, and this deal is predicated on two assumptions, which are really long shots. The first assumption is that Iran isn't going to cheat, when in fact, in the past, that's all they've ever done on international agreements. They cheat. The second assumption that the Obama administration is making is by the time they get nukes, because we know they're getting nukes, by the time they get nukes, they'll have changed and given up their evil ways, and they won't be chanting death to America, and they won't. What if those assumptions are wrong?
Yeah.
Okay. What if they do cheat and they don't change? Then the Obama administration and the senators and the congressmen who have voted for this deal will have created a Frankenstein monster in the Middle East that nobody can stop. And it's not even Iran getting nukes, because that's not where it stops. It's the other countries who are going to say, boy, I better get my own. I got to nuke up too. And we've seen with the Arab Spring that dictatorships in the Middle East can be overthrown in a matter of days. So what happens if one of the other countries in the Middle East gets nuclear weapons and then is overthrown by radical Islamists? Then you have that nightmare scenario, nuclear weapons in the hands of crazy people who want to use them like ISIS.
All right, I want to change topics here. Headlines all over the country, newspapers everywhere. CIA and U.S. Special Operations Forces have launched a secret campaign to hunt terrorism suspects in Syria. I think this is no longer secret because it's obviously on the front page of many newspapers, but also because, well, there have been some drone strikes that have taken out some senior Islamic State operatives, and they put two and two together and figured out, hey, the U.S. must be behind this. Now we know they are. What's going on here?
It's chaos. I mean, the American policy on how to defeat ISIS is in complete shambles. I mean, to the point where last week the Daily Beast reported that the intelligence community is worried that its reports saying that the war against ISIS is not winning are being skewed, changed by their leadership, by the political, military, and intelligence leadership to say, oh, no, we are winning. So in other words, here we are in the Vietnam syndrome all over again, where the experts down and the guys who really know are saying, look, this is not working. And yet the political leaders are presenting it as if it's a great victory. The real problem in the Middle East is that the Sunnis aren't fighting ISIS. And the problem with that, and they're not going to fight ISIS as long as they're reporting to Shiite-controlled government, that Baghdad government that's really controlled by Iran. So until the U.S. gives up this absolute obsession with being, best pals with Iran, the bromance that President Obama seems to have with the Ayatollahs, nobody in the Middle East is going to stand up to ISIS.
KT McFarland, you heard us mention the Hillary Clinton email thing, and Monday night's email dump revealed quite a bit with regard to her communications with some envoys that we have used in the past, including Tony Blair, who was one of the foreign envoys after he was prime minister with Israel and the Palestinian discussions, and also George Mitchell, who was involved in things. A bunch of different, very famous American and international diplomats that we utilize. Their emails are now public record and are part of a major scrutiny. How does that harm the next Secretary of State, or for that matter, our current Secretary of State, who's trying to enlist people to help U.S. interests?
Here's the real problem with it, and people haven't quite focused on it yet, but in the intelligence community, blog world, there's speculation that Hillary's emails were hacked from the very beginning by the Chinese, the Russians, maybe the Iranians.
Yeah.
So that they were reading her emails in real time.
Oh, man.
And if that's the case, then they knew going into every negotiation they were having with us what our positions were, where our red lines were internally. They knew what our thinking was. And I almost fell off my Barco lounger last night when I saw the data dump that said that she was excited about taking her new iPad to Kiev, Ukraine.
Yeah.
Everybody who goes to Ukraine gets hacked. I went to Ukraine. My computer got hacked so that I'm sitting in my laptop and I'm looking into it in the middle of the night and I see the little blue light that comes on. I mean, somebody was looking at me right after I got back from Ukraine.
Oh, my
gosh.
gosh.
So she's taking her iPad to Kiev where she's going to do her emails, maybe not knowing that that's where everybody goes to get hacked.
Yeah.
And, if they were reading the stuff in real time, that's a really significant problem, not just for her, but everybody.
Thanks, KT.
She was even out there doing stuff on Wi-Fi.
Well, if it's on an iPad, it has to be on Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it's redundant.
Wi-Fi or cellular. Either way,
My
it's
gosh.
incredibly hackable.
All right, KT, thank you so much. Always a pleasure.